platform, we continue our discussion on your presidential candidate stand on land reform and agriculture with the top 4 in the surveys. Gibot Teodoro says that he wants to create agri-entrepreneurs. Let's hear about his plan.
Stakeholders should agree. What is the end? And the end is food security for everybody. And naturally, that goes to with the amelioration of the conditions of subsistence farmers.
Okay, Elvie, that statement of Gibot Teodoro you called a motherhood statement.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because it's not issue specific. You can always claim that you would want to have food sufficiency and all these things. But then how are you going to implement it? When in agrarian reform, no specific platform that he would want to pursue. And in agriculture, it's so motherhood.
It's so motherhood. And
yes,
for that,
and for that I gave him 1/4.
1/4 of a grade. Okay, Marivic?
I gave him the same thing, one quarter, because I would think that productivity is important, but then productivity doing what? What market? In other words, we can have the whole landscape planted to Bacillus thuringiensis corn, which is corn to feed to hogs, rather than food sufficiency in terms of vegetables, fruits for our population. So food sufficiency is important. The other thing is productivity is an important aspect of agrarian reform, but so is equity. And therefore, I would say that I guess I would like to hear more on the equity side from this particular candidate. So food sufficiency and the equity portion rather than simply the only productivity. It matters in terms of the priority of the next president, including of his Secretary of the DAR.
Okay, and for that?
I gave him a 1/4 shade.
Okay, and both of you agree, Elvie and Marivic, on this presidential candidate. Our next candidate is former President Joseph Estrada, who says that food security will be the priority of his administration.
Tayo number 1 importer ng bigas. At ang sinasubsidize natin yung mga farmer ng mga saan tayo nag-import sa China, sa Vietnam, sa Thailand.
Okay, you both gave Estrada a grade of half shade for being very consistent and having demonstrated it during his short term.
Yes.
What do you have to say about his statements now?
Actually, lots of conversion happened also during his time, and maybe when he was if he was able to finish his term, maybe more irrigable lands would have been converted. But
is that good or bad?
That's very bad, because you're limiting the lands where you can plant rice and other foodstuffs, and transforming it into residential subdivisions like that. But then his plans to implement the Agri-Agra law, and and specifically he's been mentioning some plans how to do it. I gave him a grade of half shade. Yes.
Okay. Marivic, you gave him the same grade.
The same grade because he has good people. He had good people at the Department of Agrarian Reform. They were looking for additional sources for the budget for the Agrarian Reform program. They were able to enforce the compulsory acquisition in a very definitive way. And of course, his soundbite on the Agri-Agra law, I think, is very correct. That there is this particular legislation, and he can build on that. However, it was also during his term that a lot of farmers did suffer from a lot of conversions. And of course, we would want a leader, not his people, to actually know the particulars of the agrarian reform law. So I gave a grade of 1/2.
Okay. Also, let me just ask you a quick question. You said that the proper term is agrarian reform and not
land reform.
Land reform. Why is that?
Land reform is associated with simply the transfer of ownership or the regulation of the tenure. So the transfer from shareholdings, share tenancy to leasehold tenancy, or the transfer of ownership from the landlord to the tenant. Agrarian reform is more comprehensive. It looks at the support services. It looks at the way that justice is delivered to both the farmer and the owner. It looks at the aspect of integrating this entire resource with the market, and it also looks at and supposed to look at food sufficiency and environmental issues.
All right, so it's more more broad. We now go to the top two contenders for the presidency. Senator Manny Villar says that he will work for effective land distribution. Let's hear what he has to say.
We must very quickly repair the irrigation systems. We must build post-harvest facilities because we lose about 5 to 10% of our harvest sa mga post-harvest facilities. If we can only have that, then we don't have to import.
All right, what do you think of that plan?
Again, it's all about productivity and looking at the efficiency in the production process. Again, that's the same point that I made a while ago. You have to look at the sufficiency of food and the security for food in the near future. Oil prices are going to shoot up. Climate change is before us, and therefore we have to look at local production of our food so that it's adequate and affordable. It's not a matter of sufficiency. Second is this candidate is of course coming from the standpoint of a realtor, and more often than not this does not square with the objectives of the Agrarian Reform Program. Housing is important, but what is important is a vertical way of using the land rather than horizontal, and there are conflicts between agrarian and agrarian issues and realty sector. So I would say that the track record, of course, is also not that clear. He was not there when the CARPER was being voted upon. Not that he voted against it, but he was not there. But it shows his sincerity of pushing this agenda through. So I gave him a 1/4 vote.
Okay, you feel that the senator is conflicted in this particular issue?
I would say that yes, he might probably be conflicted on this specific issue unless he can show he became rich because of the realty sector of a lot of subdivisions.
Elvie?
Actually, when he mentioned repair of irrigation system, it is already being done in the Department of Agriculture. These are support services actually. But then, Villar is a guy who looks at land as a commodity. As something he can buy and he can improve. It's a product of a buy and sell. Yes, of course there is. If you're selling something like, okay, an area where it is already a residential land or it has been declared as such. But for him to buy, irrigated lands which are producing rice and vegetables and things like this, or even lands where there are farmers, of course, he will not buy a land where there are so many farmers inside. That's why when he said it's all above board, of course it is, because he instructed whoever is the seller to remove or to buy off all the farmers then and remove them there, and that's the only time, and work for the conversion of the property, and that's the only time that he will finalize the sale. So when he said it's not being corrupted, it was corrupted and it's being corrupted until now. So we have so many lands which are being converted to other non-agricultural uses.
So what grade did you give him?
I gave him a grade of shade of none.
No shade at all?
None.
All right. Finally, our last candidate here is